Sebastian Maniscalco.
My wife and I went to go see Hamilton on Broadway.
It Ain't Right Tour 2024.
Oh my God, it is amazing. We saw it. Oh, it changed me it changed me. Now, as soon as I hear that, I'm like, I ain't gonna like this.
Sebastian Maniscalco, live on stage in Des Moines, Wells Fargo Arena, December 15th, 2024. Get tickets now at livenation.com. For more, visit sebastianlive.com.
Welcome into the Channel Seed Studios for Bigger Than 12 on the Iowa Everywhere podcast. Thank you wherever you are watching, wherever you're listening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jake Brend, joined as always by Derek Duke down in Texas. Derek, how are we doing, my friend?
Doing good, man. What a weekend of football, not just in the Big 12, but across all of college football. So many great games. I will admit to you, Jake, you know this, that I was a wedding on Saturday and I had to do my groomsman duties, but I was able to catch some games because there was a TV at the open bar. So
good.
Thankfully, that was the last one of my buddies to get married, so I shouldn't have any more fall weddings for the foreseeable future. Also, I must say it was not the best idea to pound beers until 3 a.m. and then try to catch up on Big 12 football the next day. That was a little rough.
It can be challenging.
Yeah.
But man, there's fall weddings, and then there's a fall wedding on October 12th, which was just It was known to be the day for college football this year, and it lived up to the hype. As always, Bigger Than 12 is presented by WeathCharter Retirement Planning and Tax. Do you know who should get in contact with our good friends at WeathCharter? Cam Rising, the seventh-year quarterback, out for the rest of the year. He's got the chance to maybe come back for another year. I would recommend that he goes and gets in contact with our friends at WeathCharter, because he's probably a little bit closer to retirement age than he is college age. But in all seriousness, WeathCharter Retirement Planning and Tax is a great sponsor, is a great company, and they're always putting the interest of their clients first, as they should. And they're here to be like the experts of experts, or they're also here to give you the absolute basics of what you should be doing with your money, and how you should be investing your money to get ready for whatever stage of life you're in, whether you're a recent college grad, whether you're in your 30s, or whether you are 10 days away from retiring from your job. WeathCharter Retirement Planning and Tax is your place to be, and go work with Tim Hawkins and his great team up there in Ankeny. You can visit WeathCharterRetirement.com to schedule an appointment with them in Ankeny, Iowa. Let's waste no further time. We already talked about Cam Rising. He will certainly be a topic in today's 12-pack, but we're going to bring Aiden Wyatt in to give us 12 topics in the Big 12. Aiden,
Let's
welcome.
get into it, fellas. Jake, who was the most impressive team from the weekend?
I don't want to sound like a homer, but I will. It's Iowa State. 6-0 for the first time since 1938. Impressive in the grand scheme of things to be 6-0. Even more impressive when you consider the fashion that they did it in on Saturday. Down to some fifth and sixth string linebackers, and you couldn't really tell. It was a John Haycock masterclass. And then the offense, again, you're not going to look back at that performance in 10 years and think, wow, what an offensive performance. But it was just another efficient, another pretty clutch day from everyone involved with that offense. I was more impressed with Iowa State after that game than I had been any of the previous 5 this year. And that's saying something, because we've been pretty impressed week in, week out by the Cyclones.
Yeah, and I'd love to know if there's anybody alive from the 1938 season that would, I don't know if that's possible or not, but I don't know if anybody would be, or if anybody even remembers that season, but it'd be pretty cool if somebody did. But for me, it's BYU. I thought it was going to be a close game against Arizona, and instead they went out and they beat them by 22 points. They didn't have to do much offensively because their defense just completely took over that game as usual. They got 4 takeaways, and it helped put their offense in some great spots in that game. I mean, Arizona's 4 turnovers turned into 24 points for BYU, including that pick 6. So BYU really impressed me with the way they handled their business on Saturday.
They've got a recipe for success out there in Provo.
Absolutely. Derek, who was the most disappointing team of the weekend?
It's UCF for me. They lost an absolute clunker of a game against Cincinnati, 19-13. Absolutely horrible to watch. I highly recommend not watching that game again ever. They benched KJ Jefferson, and neither EJ Colson or Ja'Cory Brown could move the offense. Kobe Hudson, RJ Harvey played well, but outside of that, man, this offense stinks. UCF turned the ball over twice and had 10 penalties in that game. Just really, really tough to watch. I think when I went back and watched it, I would rather put a fork in my eyeball than have to watch that game again from UCF.
They're not good. They're just 2 years in a row where I'll take the blame for it, put pretty lofty expectations on them, and they haven't even come close to meeting them, let alone meeting them. For me, my most disappointing team, it's Arizona. We already talked about them. 4 turnovers and a loss. And for me, it's not necessarily the fashion they lost in, because as we've seen this year, Provo is just a hornet's nest. One thing goes wrong and it just snowballs. For me, it's more the big picture, the amount of stock that I've lost in Arizona, because anytime we've talked buy or sell, I've just bought more and more. And I'm going to have to sell off my car. Might have to
call WeathCharter.
Yeah, I'm really going to have to go meet with our friends at WeathCharter, because I've lost so much stock in Arizona. Luckily, I haven't lost too much real money on them, but my pride and my ego has greatly been damaged by this Arizona team, and we'll talk about them more in a bit, but really, really disappointing for a game that I thought they would cover.
Kansas State. We're going to flip it to a little Big 12 after dark here, fellas. Kansas State scored a touchdown with 2 minutes and 14 seconds left to take the lead over Colorado. They finish it out 31-28. Jake, did we learn more about Kansas State or Colorado in this game?
I think both positive, but I believe I learned more about Colorado in a good way. I know they lost. It's probably not what their fans wanted, not what the team wanted, but I was once again pretty impressed by how they were able to hang with a team like K-State, despite that the injuries they sustained to Travis Hunter, to AJ Horn, and their line play was bad again. And usually when their line play looks as bad as it did earlier this year, I would think, oh, they're going to lose by 30. But no, Shedeur Sanders played maybe the best game of his career and just kept them in the game. So I was super impressed by Colorado, and I've been wrong about them. And as for K-State, my opinion hasn't changed on them. I think they are who they are. I still think the BYU game was a bit of an outlier, but there are concerns in the secondary. And Avery Johnson's good for about 1 or 2 freshman mistakes a game, but I still do think that K-State is in that top 3-4 teams in the conference. How about you, Derek? Who'd you learn more about?
The answer for me is Kansas State. All season long, I've questioned if this team could win a big game on the road, and they passed a big test on Saturday night. They went into Boulder in front of a wild, hostile crowd and rose up to the occasion. DJ Giddens, my goodness, he was outstanding.
He's
now
great.
the leading rusher in the Big 12. He ran for 182 and averaged over 7 yards a carry. Jace Brown, big day, 121 yards, 2 scores. And how about Avery Johnson? Throws an interception late in that game, and then when Colorado takes the lead, he steps up, throws the pass to Brown for the big score. Avery responded in a big way, and that is exactly what I wanted to see from him. And defensively, Kansas State was pretty good too. They sacked Sanders 6 times and were in his face all game long. They shut down any sort of run game Colorado tried. So what a win for the Wildcats. A little close, too close for comfort there, but what a win for them. And I feel like this really did put them back in like the top of that Big 12 title conversation for me.
Yeah, I should add that the reason I learned more about Colorado was because I was heavy on the record on saying that K-State was going to blow them out. It was my lock of the week. I put real money on them to cover. I put real money on them to alternate cover too. So I was really confident in K-State, and Colorado proved me wrong. And I think I just got to be on the record and kind of take it on the chin that I've been pretty wrong about Colorado all year long.
Yeah, tough look, man. BYU is now 6-0. Obviously, talked about they beat Arizona last week. Oklahoma State this week. Are you guys all in on BYU? Derek, let's start with you.
Don't take the high road, Derek. Both of us have been wrong on this one.
Yeah, I'm officially on board with the Cougars, man. I'm back on board. I keep telling myself that I'm waiting for a big win. I'm waiting for this to happen. I'm waiting for that. They delivered against Arizona. The thing about this team is that they aren't flashy at all, and maybe that's why I couldn't buy in. But when you play defense the way they can, I think you have to buy in, even just a little bit at this point. I mean, they had 4 takeaways, including that pick 6, but the fact that the offense was able to capitalize on the other 3 turnovers was really impressive. BYU's now, I believe, +7 in the turnover margin. So they make teams pay for their mistakes. As long as Jake Retzloff can manage the game, I think this team will be fine because they're going to win by playing great defense. They win the turnover battle and they win the field position battle. So they almost, as weird as this sounds, they almost remind me of like a classic like Kirk Ferentz Iowa team.
You just pretty much said everything that I had written down in my notes, and I'll just back it up with some stats. They're 11th in the country in turnover margin. They're the 23rd least penalized team in the country, and they're top 30 in red zone offense. When your defense is as good as it is, whether or not you're causing turnovers, because we all kind of agree turnovers can be fluky, even when they're not, they got to Noah Fifita so much. And honestly, it was a testament to Fifita that he only got sacked once because he was under duress the entire game. I left so impressed with BYU's defense, and they've just got – there's something out in that crowd. There's some sort of Provo magic going on where just teams kind of lose their mind and they make these mistakes. And to give BYU credit, they seem to always capitalize on them. And that's how you beat a team like Arizona by 22 points at home. And they're a full-blown contender to not just be in Dallas, but they're a full-blown contender to represent the Big 12 in the college football playoff. And we have no choice but to admit that and admit that we were completely wrong on them.
Absolutely.
Arizona is 1-2 in conference play. What is going on in Tucson, Jake?
It starts in the trenches. Noah Fifita, I just mentioned it, was so good at avoiding the pressure on Saturday, but there's only so much you can do when you are under duress as much as he is. And their defense, I still think is solid. You saw how good they were in the red zone against Utah a couple weeks ago. I thought they were okay against BYU, but when you're giving them the ball on the plus side of the field, there's only so much you can do. But with all the talk about the trenches and stuff like that, their best players still have to be better. Like, one of the interceptions was just a bad decision by Noah Fifita. McMillan had a drop. McMillan fumbled against Texas Tech a couple weeks ago. So, like, eventually your best guys, your guys that are supposed to be all conference, need to step up as well. And they have to help the team score in the red zone. And it just hasn't been enough of a team effort at all from Arizona.
For me, it's probably easier to ask what isn't wrong with Arizona at this point. Their defense, I know you talked about it just now, but they're kind of just the middle of the pack defense in the Big 12. When you look at the numbers, the scoring defense is skewed to me because of their offense. But we all thought that Arizona was going to be competitive in the Big 12 because of their offense. And it's really backfired on them. It's turned into a weakness, actually. And the offensive line, that's where it starts for me. The offensive line isn't very good. They struggle to open up running lanes, and at times they have trouble protecting Fifita. And speaking of Fifita, he has no other throwing options outside of McMillan. And it's showing.
That's a huge problem.
And don't get me wrong, like, McMillan is arguably one of the best receivers in the Big 12, but you need more than him to win games. And Noah's trying to win. He's trying to do way too much, and I feel like it's cost this team games because he actually leads the Big 12 with 9 interceptions. and is completing less than 59% of his passes. And I feel like, honestly, this offense is just so easy to scheme against because you double McMillan, you take away, 75% of what they're trying to do offensively. And right now, they're the second worst scoring offense in the Big 12, and that's a problem, especially when your defense isn't in the top half of the conference.
Yeah, the thing with Fafita that I noticed is he is breaking from the pocket really early, sometimes even before the pressure's coming. And that's definitely the sign of a quarterback that has been under pressure a lot and where kind of seeing ghosts. And when your best player is double, even sometimes triple teamed, makes it really hard when your other receivers can't get open or can't make plays. So just, gosh, I need to get it tattooed on my wrist. Don't buy any more stock in Arizona.
And to be fair, it also falls on the coaching staff a little bit too for not being a little bit more creative with certain things.
Correct. That too. But yeah, if they pull off another upset or something like that, or have a really competitive game against a good team, I know it's going to be, Jake, you back in on Arizona? The answer is no. Aiden, play this clip. Just play this clip before that segment. Just remind me that my answer is no, please.
It's always no.
No.
Utah is also 1-2 in conference play. Obviously, Jake, you mentioned Cam Rising out indefinitely, according to Kyle Whittingham. They've only scored 51 points through 3 Big 12 games. Derek, do they have any hopes for a Big 12 title game?
They're beyond done. In fact, we should take Utah's title hopes, put them in a casket, have a funeral service, and bury them 10 feet in the ground because this team's Big 12 title hopes are absolutely dead. Defensively, I will say, I think they're still pretty good, and they're going to keep them in ball games, but their offense is absolutely atrocious. Utah has the third worst scoring offense in the Big 12 and are slowly falling down that list when it also comes to running the football and passing. It was clear to me in that game that Cam Rising was not 100% healthy out there against Arizona State. And at this point, that really feels like the story of his entire college career, that he isn't healthy. His hand was hurt. His leg was hurt. He couldn't move hardly at all. And you noticed it with his passes. He shortened a bunch of his passes, and he ended up throwing 3 interceptions. And that's a big reason why Utah lost that game. And I'm sorry, but Isaac Wilson is not the guy who's magically going to get them to Arlington. This is going to end up being a season of what if for Utah like it was last year, because if you look at the schedule, this team is going to be lucky to get to 6 wins. And speaking one more thing on Cam Rising, it's time to get a job. I don't want to see him come back for an 8th season. If he comes back to Utah, give the man a headset or a job application. I don't want to see him playing quarterback again in college.
They have no more room for error. You got to win out to even have a chance. I don't see them winning out, but what I will say is it's still Kyle Whittingham, and he's still one of the better coaches in all of college football. But at the end of the day, I do think it's a 4-horse race right now for 2 spots. It's Iowa State, BYU, K-State, Tech. I would be really, really, really surprised if there was a team outside of that 4 that was representing the conference in Arlington. But this whole Cam Rising thing is so interesting, and I haven't followed the Utah program long enough because they haven't been in the Big 12 until this year. But to me, Friday night felt like the accumulation of Kyle Whittingham and the Utah staff never being honest about Cam Rising's status. I think that's unfair to Rising because I believe it put him, at least gauging from the cesspool that's social media, it put him in a position where he was taking a lot of the blame from the fan base for not being out there, when in reality, you could tell really early on in that game that he should not have been out there. And honestly, I commend him for that, for playing through that. But it's up to the staff to say, you know what? I know Isaac Wilson's not great yet. I don't know if he will be great. But whatever version of Isaac Wilson there is now, it's got to be better than 30% Cam Rising. And I know Rising has accomplished incredible things for that program, going to Pac-12 championships in 2020 and 2021. So the fact that that game will probably be a lot of his lasting legacy kind of sucks. And I sort of feel bad for him for just the the position that he was put in to try and go out there and be the hero. Because again, like without him, I don't think their offense is dynamic enough to compete at the top of the conference, despite how solid their defense can be.
He took a beating out there for sure.
It was hard to watch.
It was really tough to watch. I mean, he clearly was not 100%. Jake Yumi are big, huge ASU guys. Huge Scattaboo program right here.
Dude, I've got a shirt on the way. It'll be here, I think, next Monday. I can't wait.
Sun Devils are 5-1, 2-1 in Big 12 play. Are they the biggest surprise of the Big 12 this year? Derek, we'll start with you.
I think they are for a lot of people, including you two guys, obviously, but I'm going with BYU, and I'll tell you why here, because I went back on my preseason Big 12 poll, and I actually had BYU lower than Arizona State. I picked BYU to finish 15th, and at this point, I thought Satake would be fired by the end of the season because they wouldn't make a bowl game. And looking at the schedule, I had them at 2-4 right now instead of 6-0. BYU right now has the third best odds to win the conference, only behind Iowa State, Kansas State, which seems kind of confusing because they beat Kansas State, but we'll let that go for another time. But what a surprise me about BYU is the fact that they're winning games, they're undefeated, and it's the way they're winning them. 4 of their 6 wins have been by 20 or more points, and in the 2 games which they didn't win by more than 20, they were road games. So this team is dominating their opponents, and that's something I did not see coming at all.
This question was about Arizona State, dang it. This is about the Sun Devils, and yeah, they're the biggest surprise in the Big 12. Picked to finish last place. I thought nothing of them. I've got my Athlon Sports College Football Preview magazine sitting on the ground right next to my desk. That magazine didn't know anything about them. And here they are, 5-1 on the brink of bowl eligibility. They've got, I don't know if I can say the most fun running back in college football because it's been kind of a running backs year in the sport, but they've got one of the 3 most fun running backs that exist in the country in Cam Scattaboo. And Kenny Dillingham, that's the people's coach. You see what he did Friday night, not only coaching an awesome game, but the emotion that he showed after in the crowd, the emotions almost of like a little kid getting to coach his favorite college football team. Who wouldn't want to go play for that guy? I'd go strap up for him right now. I'd risk tearing my ACL to go play for Kenny Dillingham. And that's a program with momentum for the future. It's really similar to what happened in Ames back in 2017 when Iowa State was able to knock off Oklahoma, knock off TCU, and just be the best story in college football. And I think Arizona State is certainly up there for the best story in the entire sport. Yeah, I know Iowa State plays Arizona State next year, but I hope they just never play them because I would love for Arizona State to be like my Big 12 West team. I'm all in on the Devils, and I know Aiden's got a mansion out there on Dillingham Island. I've got a small condo because I got in a little bit later than he did, but
it was like getting in on Apple in 1984.
Yeah, it's a party out there on Dillingham Island.
Did you hear you were talking about his post game interview with ESPN when he was like, all the people that took the over, send it back to our NAL funds because we need you.
Put it back in the collective. Absolutely. Yeah. Smart man.
You should be talking to him. He's the one who did this.
I love him.
That was awesome.
I love him. Cincinnati 2-1 in Big 12 play with wins over Houston and UCF. Jake, are you buying or selling the Bearcats?
I don't want to do it. Tyson Veit, he's a very important person in the Iowa State football program, now the defensive coordinator at Cincinnati. But I got to sell. And while I do think they've gotten better from last year, I don't think they've gotten that much better. I do like Brendan Sorsby more as a quarterback than I like Emory Jones, despite a couple of the uncharacteristic turnovers that he had on Saturday. And they've got solid weapons, but again, they're just solid. So that's why I think they're probably a 5 or 6 win team. And I don't want to spoil too much of the show, but I think they've got a chance to beat my Sun Devils on Saturday. But after that, they could lose their next 4. So I'm going to sell lightly. I wouldn't like sell the entire stock, but I don't think they're anything more than a middle of the pack Big 12 team.
I agree with you. And I've actually had a question in my weekly football mailbag on Heartland College Sports about Cincinnati, and I kind of gave a long-winded answer, but I'll try to kind of break it down here. I know they beat UCF on the road, but is there really a team this year that they beat that has impressed you? I mean, they're 4-2. Their wins are against Towson, Miami of Ohio, Houston, and UCF. None of those teams have a record above 500. Now, we'll agree with you that Brandon Sorsby has been a pleasant surprise for their offense because he's been fairly accurate this season. He's done a great job of taking care of the football. He actually wrote down he's one of 6 starting quarterbacks in the Big 12 with over 200 passing attempts, and he has the second fewest interceptions out of that group. But they don't run the ball particularly well, and they have the 3rd worst rushing offense in the conference. My main concern with them is the lack of weapons offensively. Like Corey Kiner's a good running back, but they struggle to open up lanes for him. And then outside of Xavier Henderson, like who's their second best receiver? Like Royer at tight end's been decent, but like they need to find another passing target, kind of like Arizona. But I just need to see more of them, and I see them win some more games. And they're going to have some opportunities to do that because their schedule really picks up over the next few weeks. I mean, get this. They play Arizona State, Colorado, West Virginia, Kansas State, and Iowa State over their next 5 games. Like, that is a brutal stretch. And we're going to find out a whole lot about this Cincinnati team, whether they're for real or not.
Yeah, their most impressive accomplishment is probably losing by just a field goal to Texas Tech. And that game was kind of a fluky game. We alluded to it last week that it probably was a lot closer than the score should have indicated. So I completely agree. They got a lot to prove.
UCF, I feel like just a couple weeks ago we were talking about this game coming up in Ames would be, prime time is going to be a big game in Ames, and they're kind of on a downward spiral. Derek, where does UCF go from here?
They go down, and they go down really hard. UCF has 0, and I mean 0 offense outside of Kobe Hudson and RJ Harvey. I mean, the KJ Jefferson experiment has turned out to be a disaster in Orlando, and it got so bad where he got benched this past weekend. I mean, good luck to AJ Colson and Ja'Cory Brown. They're going to try to make chicken salad out of chicken shit because this offense, it's going to be tough to do it with this because, I mean, there were a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people talking about UCF as a dark horse Big 12 title contender. But with the way their schedule looks, like, I'll be honest with you, and I can't believe I'm saying this, like, they might not win another game this season. Like, there is a chance that they seriously go 3-9 on the year. They have to find a quarterback at the transfer portal that can do something for them offensively with their arm, because this whole we're just going to try to run it and hope for the best is not going to work in this conference. And Gus Malzahn, unfortunately, he may find out that the hard way because he's got to make a move this offseason.
He's got to hire an offensive coordinator. The experiment of him calling plays has not worked out, and he's got to bring in an offensive coordinator that's going to bring in his own fresh offensive identity, because whatever they have right now, like you said, it is not working. You have 3 quarterbacks that have seen snaps, and they really all 3 have the same skill set. Good runners, physical runners, not much downfield threat. Ja'Cory Brown probably looked a little bit better than KJ Jefferson did on Saturday than Jefferson has all season, but it's not a drastic change between the two. So it's clear they've got resources. They've got the ability to get talent if you just look at the recruiting rankings, but they need to find better ways to either develop the talent, especially at the quarterback position, or they need to just find better ways to get the ball in the hands of that talent, because they haven't even done close to that. So it all starts with bringing in a fresh offensive identity. And it's similar to something we've dealt with a lot in this state with the Iowa football program. Just Malzahn, bring someone in that's smarter on the offensive side of the ball than you and hand them the keys. That's the key to this offseason.
Neil Brown and the Bigger Than 12 podcast have one thing in common. We hope that you just have fun while you're here. Jake, is Neil Brown back on the hot seat?
I didn't say that. Just kidding. I hope everyone does have fun, and we appreciate everyone who supports this great program here on Iowa Everywhere. But yeah, I think the seat's hot. I'm not even going to say the seat is warm. It's getting really hot, and I'm not sure if everyone has heard what his comments were on Monday's press conference following their loss to Iowa State. But Mountaineer Twitter is not happy with it. So Brown said, I get they want to win, referring to the fans. But what I would say is, did they have a good time? Did they enjoy it? It was a pretty good atmosphere. I'm assuming they had a pretty good time tailgating. So if they're in the deal for enjoyment, or I must have wrote that down wrong, then I would come back. I looked at the weather, and it's going to be nice again. That doesn't sound to me like a coach that has a bunch of confidence in his football program, his coaching abilities, and it sounds to me like a coach that doesn't have that much time left. We've talked about it. There isn't a signature win at West Virginia in his time there. And looking at their schedule, their game against K-State this Saturday might be his last chance at a signature win. If they don't win that, I don't know if there's much he can do the rest of the year to trust the climb and to salvage his job, because he's been there a while, and Mountaineer fans are getting impatient.
I can just feel my blood just boiling when we're going to hit this topic, because it just pisses me off so much. I mean, he shouldn't be able to sit down because the seat's so damn hot. And I have a problem with Neil Brown. I mean, trust the climb. I would rather jump off the mountain than trust the climb he's on. I mean, since 2019, I had to go back. He has a Big 12 record of 22-25. Like, is that good? He's never finished higher than fourth in the Big 12. He's never been close to being a Big 12 title contender. I am sick and tired of the excuses from him. And after seeing that press conference on Monday, like, if I were a West Virginia fan, I would be so pissed off. And if I were a donor, I wouldn't give another penny to that program for as long as he's the head coach. I mean, what was that message to the fans? Like, Did they enjoy it? Did they have a good time? Like, I'm sorry, but what in the fuck is he actually talking about? Like, your job is to win games, not have a good time. You don't get paid $4.5 million to have a good time. If you're worried about people having a good time, then go coach flag football. That has to be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard a coach say. If he loses to Kansas State, I hope they just can his ass after that comment. Like, that was bullshit. I'm sorry.
So all that being said, if they win Saturday, which they're only a 3-point underdog, they're 3-1 in the conference. So a lot can still happen, but gosh, those comments were just weird. And I wonder if it just didn't come out like he meant it. But gosh, yeah, it just feels like something a coach of a 2-7 football team would say, not a 4-2 football program that he has been on the hot seat for quite some time. And I know he cooled it off last year. Credit to him. They had a out of nowhere surprise year in 2023.
Easy schedule.
It was an easy schedule, and there were some fluky wins in there. But to say that with a fan base that's already on edge, I don't know how I feel about it.
Seemed to have struck a chord with you there, Derek.
I think I need to buy beer. I need to crack one for the clones now. I might need that beer.
Let's lighten the mood a little bit. More or less at the middle point of the college football season. Derek, who is your Big 12 Player of the Year and Coach of the Year?
This may not be a popular pick for Player of the Year, but I'm going with Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. I mean, you could say what you want about Deion and Colorado, but this kid's the real deal. Like, he has the most touchdown passes in the Big 12 with 17. He also leads the conference in completion percentage at 72.6%. And he also leads the country in guys who have more than 205 pass attempts in that category. Sanders is the reason why Colorado is in so many of these damn games that they probably have no business being in. And he's doing all of this behind the worst offensive line in the Big 12. I think his stats alone speak for themselves. As for Coach of the Year, I think right now it's either Matt Campbell or Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Campbell's making history at Iowa State, and Dillingham is doing things at Arizona State that nobody thought he could do this early in his tenure. I mean, if Arizona State wins 7 or 8 games and Campbell goes out and wins a Big 12 title, like, I honestly wouldn't be mad if they split the award at the end of the year.
Well, I'm going to stay in Boulder, but I'm not going to go Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to go Travis Hunter.
That's
if I had a Heisman vote, he would be my vote for Heisman. And if he's my vote for Heisman, he's got to be my Big 12 player of the year. You saw how important he was to the Colorado offense when he was missing. I think if he was on the field, they would have gone down and scored and won that game at the end. And unfortunately, he wasn't there. But yeah, he's doing something that we haven't seen done in college football in 50 years. I know Charles Woodson, he would play some offensive snaps, but he wasn't an offensive player. Same thing with Jabril Peppers. Like, Michigan would throw him in their goal line sets to get him some Heisman sympathy votes. Travis Hunter is legitimately playing offense and defense at the highest level in the sport. I don't really care if Colorado lost out. As long as Travis Hunter keeps doing what he's doing, he would be my Big 12 player of the year. And I got to go with Kenny. He's my guy. From being picked 16th to most likely playing in a bowl game at least. Who knows? Maybe they do get to 7-8 wins. I already mentioned the similarities to those Matt Campbell years. Matt Campbell did win Coach of the Year in 2017. It's a really similar coaching job to bring a dormant program that he took over from Herm Edwards that frankly nuked the entire program. What he's been able to do in 2 years is so impressive, and I'd give him my vote.
Last one on the 12-pack here, guys. Jake, who's playing in Arlington?
The Iowa State Cyclones are going to beat BYU in Arlington. I don't know necessarily the road to get there. I think right now I think that Iowa State K-State game, the last game of the season, is going to be a play-in game to get to Arlington. And I think Iowa State will take care of business at Jack Trice Stadium. And I think that BYU is honestly a pretty good matchup for them. I would take the Cyclones over BYU if I had to place money on it right now.
Yeah, the first one, you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. The first one's obviously Iowa State. They've looked like the best team in the Big 12. And when you look at the Cyclones, to me, they're the most complete team in the Big 12 from top to bottom. The fight for second, to me, is going to be between Kansas State and BYU. And since BYU already has that head-to-head win over Kansas State, I have to go with the Cougars. Like, I still have a little bit of questions about them offensively, but you can't deny their defense. And you can't ignore what they've done so far. And then also, I mentioned before the show, Jake, like, their schedule is very friendly. They get Oklahoma State, UCF, Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston to end the season. I feel like that's about as easy it gets in this conference. Like, you couldn't ask for a better schedule, back half schedule than that, because I don't know. I feel like they're set up like there's a good chance like BYU could go 12-0 and possibly maybe Iowa State goes to 12-0. Like, we could have 2 undefeated teams going in Arlington.
Well, and the thing with BYU, because they do already have that tiebreaker over Kansas State, is for the most part, they can lose one game and it won't really matter, because for K-State to finish with 1 win, they're going to have to win in Ames. They're going to have to win in Morgantown. Or, sorry, 1 loss. But, yeah, for me, I would say it's more likely that BYU is in Arlington than Iowa State, just because of how the schedule breaks out and because of the tiebreakers that BYU already owns. But if those 2 teams met, I would pick the Cyclones, because I agree. I think they're the better team. I think they're the more complete team. But we've gotten to the point, this might have to be a topic next week. Could be two Big 12 teams in the playoffs, if you've been paying attention to the rest of the sport. And who knows? We're not on the committee. I wish we were. We could fix a lot of things if me and you were on that committee, Derek.
For sure. It wouldn't look like a nursing home.
It sure wouldn't. But we're going to bring Aiden in. We've got a trivia question. Did you cheat this week again?
No, hands clean.
Okay,
we did not. No cheating.
Iowa became a state in 1846. But Des
Sure
Moines
did.
was not the state capital till 1857. What was the state capital before Des Moines?
Dude, so I'll let Derek answer because I know the answer, but I thought you were going to ask what year it became the capital. And I literally Googled that yesterday, and I don't know why. I was talking about it with someone, but I was going to get it right. Dang.
I'm going to guess, I don't know, Cedar Rapids?
No, there's
Close.
a bad football program there. Something happened where whatever football program played there, they set the sport back 1,000 years, and they punished them and sent the capital to the other side of the state. It used to be Iowa City.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
dude, that was okay.
Yeah.
That was going to be I felt like that was the most logical choice, but I'm like, you know what? With these answers, it's probably something I'm going to think outside the box here.
Well, Cedar Rapids is the second biggest city in Iowa, so
I knew
Wasn't a bad
it was one of
guess.
the bigger cities.
the logic is
Yep.
there. So
They moved it to Des Moines because they thought it needed to be more centralized to the state. So
I like my
There
there you
answer.
go.
I like
Great
my
city.
answer.
Des Moines is a great city.
No, they moved it to Des Moines because I'll just stop. I'll chill out. But we just talked about the Cyclones. We made it about 40 minutes in the show before talking Iowa State. I think Iowa State fans have probably had plenty of Iowa State content to consume on this great program over the last couple days, but we have no shortage of cracking one for the clones for you. And I wanted to talk about a kind of bigger picture topic. Derek, does Iowa State have the best coaching staff in the Big 12?
It was kind of an interesting question this week, and I had to really look down some of these coaching staffs and just to see who's available. But I think the answer is yes. We could nitpick some of the position coaches, but when we're strictly talking about coordinators, like there isn't a better duo than Taylor Mauser and John Heacock in the conference. I mean, just starting with Heacock, just look at the numbers for crying out loud. Iowa State has the best scoring defense in the Big 12 at 11 points per game, which is also the fifth best in college football. The fact that John Haycock's doing this when he's down to his fourth and fifth string linebackers is absolutely incredible. I feel like at this point he's just pulling people from the student section to come suit up and play linebacker because what he's done there has been absolutely amazing. And I saw Jeff Woody from Cyclone Fanatic the other day showing what the defense did against West Virginia, the way they were able to force Garrett Green and take away almost an entire side of the field. That's next level stuff. Haycock knows how to hide his weaknesses and mask them. It's almost like offenses are forced to play his game each and every week instead of the other way around. And that secondary of Iowa State's is so damn good. But they're able to do so many things because of that secondary. And when you combine that with a solid defensive front, Haycock has options. And that's the guy that you don't want to give options to. Iowa State's, I think their pass defense is fifth in the country too. So all around, just a really solid unit despite the injuries at linebacker. And they're doing it without their best player in Caleb Bacon. The fact that they're able to do all this is nothing short of a miracle. And, forget about the Big 12, honestly, because you might not find a better defensive coordinator in all of college football with John Haycock. So he's obviously been great for a long time there. As for Mauser, obviously he's new, but I really love his aggressiveness. He's not afraid to take shots. And when you have weapons like Iowa State does on offense with Noel, Higgins, Bramer, why not be a little bit aggressive? He's got a solid trio at running back with Jackson, Sama, and Hansen that we didn't really know about before the season because we thought it was going to be a bunch of Abu Sama, but they really have emerged as a solid group there. And I know the numbers may not be the greatest offensively, across the board, but you're not going to find a more well-rounded offense than Iowa State, and that's in large part due to Mauser's play calling and really his aggressiveness at the right time.
And I think that comes back to the game management side of things. If Iowa State wanted to be a top 15 or top 20 offense, by now they could be, but that hasn't been what the games have dictated. The Houston game, because the defense was so good, obviously they would have liked to put up more points earlier, but that game did not call for Iowa State to get to 38 points in the fourth quarter. Just like the game against West Virginia on Saturday didn't call for Iowa State to put up 40 because the defense was, again, so good. And as far as top to bottom coaching staff, yeah, I think they've got the best in the conference. And you can certainly make the case if we're talking up top. Kyle Whittingham, Mike Gundy, they have done so much for their respective programs, for the sport, and they have a case and the track record that proves it. And if I was ranking like Big 12 head coaches, all-time legacy, those two would be ahead of Campbell. But going forward, who else in the conference is discovering and developing talent at the level that Iowa State is? There's, as far as I know, to my knowledge, no other Big 12 team right now is rolling out a sixth string true freshman walk-on at linebacker. And you can't even tell the difference between him and the fourth string that he replaced. It's incredible how they are developing talent at such a high level and discovering it from Northern Iowa Class A football, population 500 for those towns. It's incredible. And then I think the biggest strength of the coaching staff is something that a lot of programs across the country would be envious of. Look at 2022, just a year from hell for Iowa State, 4-8. You lose 4 or 5 one-score games. And then how they open the 2023 season. Gambling scandal kicks off 5 starters from your team. You lose the Cyhawk game. You lose at Ohio. Pitiful offense. Couldn't run the ball, but still tried to run the ball. What did the staff do? In 1 week, they completely reinvented their identity. And since then, the program is 10-3. And they have been the best program in the Big 12 in that stretch. And that is what a good coaching staff does. They adapt to their talent. They adapt to their strengths. And now Iowa State is, I think the best team in the Big 12, but I think they're easily the most complete. And while they may not be elite in every single area of every single aspect of the game, they're solid across the board. And I don't think any other Big 12 team can say that. And I didn't even mention the coordinators. You did plenty of that. But no one would argue when you say John Haycock's one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire sport. And they've got a rising star at offensive coordinator in Taylor Mauser that could get some looks at a MAC program to be a head coach this offseason. That would not shock me whatsoever. So yeah, I think Iowa State does have the best coaching staff in the Big 12. And I'd go as far to say that this year has been Matt Campbell's best coaching job, considering what they've done to adapt and change since that Ohio game last year. It's been his best work, and I don't think there's a reason to believe that it won't continue to get better.
Ever since that idiot tried to call out Matt Campbell for his job, it feels like things really turned around for him.
I can't remember who it was. Someone sent me a picture of that guy. He was at the Baylor game a couple weeks ago.
Oh God.
But yeah, man, maybe that guy deserves a statue. What did he awake in the Iowa State football department?
I don't know. Don't know.
Well, we're going to get to a random Big 12 quarterback in a second. But first, let's thank our friends from Freedom Tire. Oh boy, Monday, Tuesday in Iowa. I'm sure you're jealous, Derek. We got down to the mid-30s overnight. Woke up to chill. Oh, it was beautiful. I'd been just begging for this weather because right now we're in the sweet spot. It's perfect. But eventually, it's going to be as cold as it can possibly get. And that's when your car is going to have problems. That's when you might hit a pothole that you don't see that's covered by the snow. Whenever all that hits, go to our friends at Freedom Tire. They've got locations all around central Iowa in Altoona, Ames, Fleur Drive, Des Moines, West Des Moines, and Hickman on Urbandale. They are known. It's in the name. They're known for tires, to go get your tires replaced, to go get brand new ones, to just go look at tires. But again, if you need any other car maintenance, they've got that for you as well. Go give Quentin Crowner and his team at Freedom Tire a visit, or you can go to freedomtire.com. Aiden, is it my week?
It might be. It might be a week. You never know.
It's probably not.
Well, what do you do?
Probably not, but we'll see.
All right. This quarterback, started his career at an SEC school that was formerly in the Big 12. His second school, where he finished his career, was a new member of the Big 12.
I think I got it.
Do you want to guess?
Is it Kenny Hill?
It is. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Did you have it, Derek?
I probably would have needed one more hint, but I think I was kind of on that track with the A&M and TCU. Yeah, and I felt like we brought up Kenny Hill at some random conversation before. So like I had
It was going to be my
coming.
first one when I.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew Kenny Hill was coming at some point this season for sure.
Kenny Hill's my Roman Empire. I think about
Dude,
Kenny Hill like once a week.
I'm with you. I loved him. I know he had some off-field issues, but I loved him. My third hint was going to be his nickname rhymed with his last name. Do you guys remember what his nickname was?
Is it like Trill Hill?
Kenny Trill.
Kenny Trill, yeah. Yeah, he was the guy that took over after Johnny, and then like
Yeah.
A&M got to didn't they get off to like a 5 or 6-0 start, and it just
Something like
completely
that.
nosedived.
Yeah.
And then he liked to pass out outside of the bars. So
Whomst among us?
I'm on his
Whomst among us?
Wikipedia. I'm on his Wikipedia article right now. And that night he got a public intoxication charge outside of a bar in College Station. The officers asked him who the president was. He said Bush, and then told the officers his name was Kennedy. So there's that.
not much
Love
else
him,
to
though.
do. Not much else to do in College Station besides just go to the bars.
I feel such a sense of relief. Gosh, I needed that bad. I was back at my Simpson College's homecoming, and I got a couple comments like, "Are you ever going to get the Big 12 quarterback right?" Someone said like, "Can you just ask Aiden to make it easier for you?" I did not, for the record. I did not. I know the timing seems weird. I did not ask Aiden to make it easier. I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of integrity. But there's a drive in a deep left by Castellanos. It'll be a 4-3 ball game. But I'm very glad that I finally got one right. I can rest easy tonight.
I'm happy for you.
Finally. Thank you. I also, this is just the Jake Brend Flex show. Also won the Big 12 picks this week over Derek, second week in a row. I'm not going to brag about it though, because I still went under 500, just a 2-3 week.
Rough week for both of us.
I was a full 2 points away from being 4-1. So I was a victim of a couple bad beats. And this week,
Kansas State.
This week, there's no shortage of games. We've got a loaded 8-game slate, no team on a bye week. I'm glad that neither of us have a fall wedding this week, because that'd be a lot to catch up on Sunday and Monday. Let's start with another Friday game. These are just a pleasure. I love these Friday late games. The Pokes of Oklahoma State go to BYU, where the Cougars are favored by 9.5 points with the over-under at 55.5 for a 9:15 kick on ESPN.
A night game in Provo feels like a disaster for Oklahoma State, and that line is incredibly high for my taste, but I can't deny the Cougars in front of that home crowd. I got to take BYU to cover there at night in Provo.
This was probably my hardest selection. I thought about this game for 20 minutes, which means I'm not going to play real money on it because I was so unsure. But I think my lean is the under. Just that BYU defense, the inconsistencies that Oklahoma State's had at the quarterback position, whether it's Alan Bowman or whether it's somebody else, I think it's just safe to assume BYU forces a couple turnovers. And if this gets to a blowout, you just hope that it stays low enough on the Poke side to hit that under 55.5. But do not, if you're listening to this for betting advice, only follow us if we say like a lock, because the Big 12 is so hard to pick, man. Like
really hard.
It's really hard, and we've been wrong a lot this season. So The first 11 a.m. Big 12 game in 7 years as Arizona State goes to Cincinnati. And what a brutal time for an 11 a.m. game. It's 9 a.m. Arizona State time. Cincinnati at home, favored by 3. The over-under is 53.5.
Yeah, Cincinnati is 14th in the Big 12 in run defense, and Cam Scatabo is waiting on the other side for Arizona State. Sun Devils are 1 win away from becoming bowl eligible, and I think they do it. I think they get the win here, so I'm taking the Sun Devils to cover.
All logic tells me with the 2 time zones traveled, you should pick against them. They're going to be playing at 9 a.m. local time. But guess what? They got Cam Scatabo. I'm not picking against my Sun Devils. Give me. And just looking at the rest of my card, I think I need to pick one road underdog. So give me the Sun Devils at +3 on the road. Not your most marquee matchup unless you fall asleep and wake up in the middle of February for a basketball game. The Cougars of Houston travel to Kansas City, not Lawrence anymore, to play the Kansas Jayhawks. 2:30 on ESPN Plus. Thank God this is on ESPN Plus. Get this as far away from the general public as possible. The Jayhawks are favored by 6.5. The over-under is 46.5.
Yeah, at this point, I have no idea where Kansas even plays from week to week, and this should be a 9. Speaking of 9 a.m. games, this should be a 9 a.m. game. This is pretty much the Big 12 toilet bowl at this point. I don't trust Kansas, and Houston's defense is better than what people think. I'm eyeing that under. I know it's low, but I think I'm going to go with that under.
I'm blindly playing Houston unders until it comes back to bite me. Give me the under. I got no other read on this game. I'd like to think KU should round into form and blow them out, but there's been nothing with Kansas this year that's made sense. The under is the safe bet. This is a big game of classic Pac-12 matchup in Colorado going to Arizona. The Wildcats, they're getting 3 in the hook, favored by 3.5. The over-unders at 55.5 for a 3:00 kick on Fox.
I know Arizona's offense has been kind of a total disaster so far, but I think we're going to see some points being put up. Neither team has a top 10 scoring defense in the conference. I can see Fafita and Sanders battling it out like an old Western shootout. Neither offensive line's great. I think there's going to be a lot of points. That scoreboard's going to be doing some work. I'm taking the over at 55.5. It's an old Western shootout, man.
Pains me, but I'm going to just bet against Arizona. I'm going to take Colorado plus the 3.5. I think they're a better team at this point. And in a game of 2 teams with a poor offensive line, I trust the guy who has been really good at dealing with guys in his face all year long, and that's Shedeur Sanders. Give me the Buffs plus 3.5. A rivalry game down in your country, Derek. The Baylor Bears heading to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech. The Red Raiders, undefeated in Big 12 play, they're favored by 6.5. The over-under is pretty high up there at 57.5. 3:00 kick on ESPN2.
It's the famous Butt Bowl, B-U-T-T. It's the Butt Bowl. So I don't trust Baylor on the road, and I like Texas Tech's offense here. What is left of Baylor at this point? Are they still fighting for Dave Aranda? What's going on there? Expect a heavy dose of Taj Brooks, and Baylor has not been great. I'm going to take the Red Raiders to cover here. I think they're going to get it done at home.
I'm with you, and I thought my eyes were deceiving me. I was surprised this total was so low. I love the Raiders minus 6.5. I'm going to call it a lock. There we are. It's my only lock of the week is Texas Tech at home. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. Huge game. I would call this the biggest game in the Big 12 this week. Kansas State, not a bunch of room left for error if they want to make it to Arlington. They go to West Virginia. We just saw that type of atmosphere. They're coming off of a tough loss. This is a 6:30 game on Fox. The Wildcats are favored by 3. The over-under is 54.5.
As you know, I am over Neil Brown and his lame excuses. I don't think we need to get in that again, but this is a must-win for Kansas State to stay in the Big 12 title race. I like what I saw from Avery Johnson and the offense last weekend on the road. Give me the Cats to cover.
I'm going to go under. K-State is so good against the run. They're one of the best in the entire country, and that's really all West Virginia can do. I'm with you. I think K-State wins this game, and I think if they win, it's because they held West Virginia to below 20 or so points. And if that's the case, give me the under. 2 games left. TCU, man, if I thought I knew nothing about a couple of these games before, I know nothing about this game. TCU at Utah. The Utes are favored by 7. Over-under is 51.5 for a Big 12 After Dark 9:30 game on ESPN.
If there was one game I would advise everybody to stay away from, I think this would be that game. With that said, I don't trust Utah without a healthy Cam Rising. I've seen enough of Isaac Wilson to know that he cannot get the job done. The key for TCU here is just simply not turning the ball over, because I think their offense is actually good enough to keep them in this game. I think I'm going to take the Frogs to cover the 7.
I'm going to go the other way. I don't know what to expect out of Utah the rest of this year. We're going to learn Saturday night, and I'm just going to have to trust Kyle Whittingham, one of the best coaches in college football. I'm going to trust that in a night game in that atmosphere that he's got his guys ready to go. They rally around Cam Rising, and that distraction is gone. There is no more what if he comes back this year. They can finally rally around Isaac Wilson. They can rally around the team. I like Utah by a touchdown in this game. But again, don't bet on it. It's a terrible idea.
Stay away.
In closing, as we always do, with the number 9 Iowa State Cyclones at home against UCF. At last check, Iowa State was favored by 13.5. This line has kind of moved between 13 and 14 all week long. The over-under is 47.5 for a 6:30 game under the lights on FS1 at Jack Trice Stadium.
You know, before the season started, I thought this was going to be like a huge, massive game even a couple weeks ago, but UCF is dead. They cannot throw the football. John Haycock is going to run circles around UCF's offense, especially with a new quarterback. You know, I heard on 2 guys named Chris, Hecocktober. It's Cocktober, baby. And give me the damn Cyclones to cover. Hello, 7-0.
I promise that I'm not a homer. Aiden can attest to the last podcast I had on this network, Firmly Entrenched. I picked against Iowa State almost every single week. But again, I love this spot for Iowa State. You don't have anything to look ahead to because of the bye week after. None of this season feels fluky. Everything feels like, honestly, it could be even a little bit better. And I just think there's a blowout coming. I don't know what week it is, but there is going to be a week where Iowa State beats a team by 30. And I think with how close UCF can be to quitting and how little they are getting from the quarterback spot, no matter who it is, I think Iowa State absolutely destroys Central Florida this week. Give me Iowa State minus 13.5. And I'll call that a lock as well. I didn't even write that down, but I think Iowa State just dominates. Absolutely dominates. 2
locks this week for you.
And again, we'll see who wins as far as the picks go, but I won this last week, so I'm going to get my 60 seconds of fame, and I'm going to start with a quote. Are you a philosophy guy, Derek? Much of one?
Ooh, never much of a school man myself.
Well, it's from the great philosopher by the name of Andy Bernard. He said, "I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you actually have left them." And Cyclone fans, the football team is 6-0. They're ranked 9th. The men's basketball team could be the best in school history. They open the year ranked 5th. Same goes for the women's basketball team, ranked 8th. Wrestling is going to be in the top 10. Cross country is in the top 10. These are the good old days. Don't get me wrong. It might get even better. It very well could. Matt Campbell's young. TJ Halzenberger's young. Bill Fenley, he's been here a long time. And Kevin Dresser is, I think, just scratching the surface what he can do in that wrestling program. But as good as things could possibly be, this could also be the best it ever gets at the same time. I mean, look at the freaking uniforms that the basketball team just released. I haven't stopped thinking about them since we started recording this episode. My mind has been in two different places. They're so beautiful. Look at what the Iowa State athletics department has done for the atmosphere at Jack Trice Stadium this year alone. Think of what it could be at Hilton in just a month. This is the best it's ever been at Iowa State University. It's an understatement to say that they're one of the best athletic departments in the entire country at just everything combined. So, Cyclone fans, me included, I'm not going to hide that whatsoever. Go to all the games, tailgate all day, listen to all the podcasts, consume all the content, rewatch all of the highlights hundreds of times throughout the week. I mean, I've already watched the West Virginia highlights like 17 times. Soak all of it in, because these are the good old days, and you better enjoy them because they might not be here as long as we want.
No, I think that's a good argument you made there. Like, it is a great time if you're an Iowa State fan. Like, this is probably like what you would call the golden era of being an Iowa State fan across the board. And I just might add here just one or maybe two more things here. If as great as everything's been going, like, can we get some throwback logos, please, for Iowa State? Can we see some more of that?
Keep
football and basketball.
Keep it coming.
Just keep them rolling out so we don't have to look at the block logo anymore. Like, we want to see those old school logos. Like, Iowa State has some of the best damn old school logos in America. Like, we want to see more of that. Number two, please bring back the helmet cart. Like, I'd love that for football season. The helmet cart needs to come back.
No, you talk about the retro logos, and it's why I'm eternally pissed off at the NBA and Nike. All these teams have awesome throwback uniforms. Go look at the 90s. There's not really a bad basketball uniform. And now go look up and down. Outside of your classic, your Celtics looks and stuff like that, these were designed by a graphic design intern that just completed their first semester at a state university. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not an artist. I'm not really creative. But to me, there's nothing more boring than minimalism. Get this minimalism garbage out of here. Embrace the cool stuff. Embrace the retro looks. I mean, that's what... I don't care about building some brand. Screw that. Win some games and look cool doing it. That's what I would do. But again, that's why I'm me and not working in an athletic department. But yeah, I definitely could have gone that way with my 60 seconds of fame too, and I'm glad we went there because I think that's an important topic to talk about. But
absolutely,
I think we covered it all. Hell of a show. That was a huge week in the Big 12. We learned a lot. It's what we said. We said before the week we would learn a ton, and the three teams at the top, outside of Texas Tech on a bye, they all separated themselves. So I guess we learned quite a bit this week too. And I hope that you come back here same time next week to find out what we learned from a week in the most fun conference in America. This has been Bigger Than 12 on Iowa Everywhere. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, leave a review, and tell your friends.